Baruch Yahweh Elohim. Shabbat Shalom, happy Sabbath. This morning we would like to look at the subject, the promised seed of Abraham, the promised seed of Abraham. Now, we have, over the last couple of weeks, have been looking at the events as they unfold to us in what is known as the Middle East. And even the most sanguine of persons could not deny that the world is running at a temperature at the moment. The world has a fever. Hardly have we ever seen the world in such a febrile political state. Its intermittent and remittent temperature rose to a level on October the 7th that it now gives cause for concern. Yes, we see that virus, that bacterial virus we call sin, manifests itself in Gaza as it entered into the relational bloodstream of Gaza on October the 7th. And it seemed to me that the spleen of the world is ruptured. The United Nations, that sometimes present itself as the spleen, which filters the blood of nations, is not working. They have tried diplomatic vaccines and religious analgesia, but the temperature of the patient is still high. The world has a fever. And so we wonder this morning if that diplomatic, antibiotic, and religious therapy, whether or not they could bring the patient some ease. We're wondering this morning. And so as we look at the Middle East, we recognize that the pathogenic bacteria of this conflict, which is sin, it's a kind of malaria. It must be located before the patient can be free. If not, the world will enter into a seizure. Therefore, this morning we are inclined to do some blood work in this matter. Because the groups that are there, they're all claiming to be Abraham's seed. And our topic today is the promised seed of Abraham. So we want to do some blood work. We're going to do a paternity test and to ascertain who really is the seed of Abraham. We want to look at that. So turn with me to the book of Bereshit, chapter 28, and we will read from the first verse. And Yitzchak called Jacob and blessed him, and commanded him and said to him, do not take a wife from the daughters of the Canaan. Arise, go to Padam Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take a wife for yourself from there, from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother, and El Shaddai bless you and make you fruitful and increase you, and you shall become an assembly of peoples. Don't miss that. You shall become an assembly of people. Often, preachers and teachers tell us that the assembly was established in Acts chapter 2. But the word of Yah says the assembly was established in Genesis chapter 28 and verse 3. You shall be an ecclesia, that's the Greek. And in the Hebrew, the echo. But as we get to English, it says the church. Isaac said, you shall be an assembly, an ecclesia, a church, and give you the blessing of Abraham, and you and your seed with you, so that you inherit the land, your sojournings, which Elohim gave to Abraham. Now understand this, that the covenant that Abraham had with Yah was a land covenant. It was a land. And oftentimes we link the land with the people, and we confuse the issue. Throughout the scriptures, we see that Yah says, I'm going to send you or bring you to a land that is filled with milk and honey. Are you with me? I'm going to take you to a land that is filled with milk and honey. And on one occasion, we saw they needed an arrangement just to bring out a few grapes. How fertile that land was. We see that. But we read this morning, did we not, in the book of Judges, that while they were in the land, instead of eating milk and honey, we saw the Danite Samson eating honey from the carcass of a dead lion. And so this morning, we ask ourselves, why is it that a people that were called to eat honey and drink milk are eating honey out of a dead carcass? How? We want to explore that. And so perhaps think of the kingdom of Yah as a colony of bees. It being a collective organism made up of single family of bees. Think of it that way. All of which believe in Yeshua. The family consists, like in every hive of bees, it consists of a queen bee, drones, and worker bees. Are you with me? And so they make honey. The worker bees work with the queen bees. And all the worker bees in that hive, they are related to the queen bee. and the drones are there to mate with the queens to produce honey. Such is the church. Such is the ecclesia. Such is the assembly that is connected to, they are all hives connected to the general assembly. In Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 23, or we could trace it all the way back to what we've just read in Genesis chapter 28 and verse 3, that you will be unto me, unto Yah, an assembly. And all nations of the earth will be blessed because of this assembly. And so we are doing this paternity this morning to show you that the promise that Yah made to Abraham was a land promise. And at the end of the day, when we have established who the people are who will live in the land, we will know who it is that belongs to Yah. We see that. Come with me from verse 8 to 10. And Yah brought us forth out of Egypt with a mighty hand, and with an outstretched arm, and with great terribleness, and with signs and with wonders. And he hath brought us into this place, and hath given us this land, even a land that floweth with milk and honey. There it is. And now behold, I have brought the first fruit of the land, which thou, O Yah, hast given me, and thou shalt set it before Yahweh, thy Elohim, and worship before thy Yah. So Yah says, in the land we call Israel, it is a land filled with milk and honey. And so the expectation was that these drone bees, these queen bee and the worker bee, they would go from nectar to nectar among the flowers of the earth and collect the substance from the flowers, and they would make honey. But as we indicated, we see Samson drinking honey from a dead carcass. And that's what we're seeing today. The land is there, but the people seemingly are eating honey from a dead carcass. And we're wondering, why is this so? And by the time we get to the Messiah, he wants you to know that these are just synagogue of Satan. That's what he calls them. They're a synagogue of Satan. But let's do it systematically, because we're told in the book of Hebrews, chapter 1, that Yah had spoken to the prophets in sundry times. But now he speaks to us through his son, Yeshua. So Yeshua comes to us in Chizayon, that's the book of Revelation. Let's go there, chapter 1, and we will read verses 12 to 14. John here is the disciple taking notes. And John says, I turned to see the voice that spake with me, and being turned, I saw 7 golden candlesticks, lampstands. And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like the Son of Man, clothed with garment down to his foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. His head and his hair were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were a flaming fire. And John goes on to tell us that his feet were as a burnished brass. So we don't have to conjecture what the Messiah looks like. Because he tells us himself, and he told John, John, you better take notes and take this letter to the churches so that they will understand and will not be deceived, whether it is by Michelangelo or otherwise. You will not be deceived when they craft a drawing. I said craft, a drawing, and said, this is the Messiah. He said, no, the Messiah has feet as a burning brass, and he has hair like wool. John, I want you to take this letter to the churches and let them know that. So someone contrary to Yah's will played a trick on minds that were vulnerable. Oh, yes. So we want to look at the fact that the covenant that Yah made with Abraham, it was a land covenant and it was administered. The administration was under the Melchizedek order of things, not the Levitical order. Throughout the scriptures you read, you will never see the land that was being administered by the Levitical order. It was under the Melchizedek order. That ought to tell you something. It was in Genesis chapter 14 that Abraham met Melchizedek. And in 2 Peter 2, we read that Noah was the 8th person of righteousness, meaning he was the 8th Melchizedek, meaning also that his son Shem was the 9th Melchizedek, who was the one who met Abraham in chapter 14 of Genesis. So Melchizedek is an office rather than it is a person, pointing to the real Melchizedek, which is Yeshua, because he's a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. We want you to understand that. So as we look at Israel, we are not talking so much about the state of Israel, geographical Israel. We're talking about the Israel of Yah. Because the Israel of Yah are those who accept Yeshua and are therefore tied to Abraham. We've got to understand that. Otherwise, we are going to allow people to deceive us. So turn with me now to the book of Romans, because the Apostle Paul, he picks up this theme and he elucidates the point that we should continue to make clear. Paul gives us this perspective, the perspicuity of which we ought not to miss. Verse 28 of Romans chapter 2. A person is not a Jew who is one only outwardly. Did you hear that? Paul says a person is not a Yehudi who is outward, nor is Brit Milah, circumcision, merely outward and physical. No, a person is a Jew, a person is a Yehudi who is inwardly. And circumcision is circumcision of the heart by the Spirit, not the written code. Such a person's praise is not from other people, but from Yah. You are not a Jew if it's outward. You can wear all the yarmulkes you want to wear. You can wear all the zit you want to wear. You can have all the talit that you want. But it doesn't make you a Jew. Even if you're born in the land, Paul says you're not a Jew. Because being a Jew means that you accept Yeshua, and you are then linked to Abraham. We've got to understand that. And that's why this morning we want to do this blood work and paternity test, so that as we go through, you can see, at least by a sketch that we provide, what a Jew looks like. Come with me to Romans 9 now. Romans chapter 9. Romans chapter 9. And we will begin at verse 6. And it reads, not as though the word of Yah hath taken none effect. For they are not all Israel. Did you hear me? They are not all Israel which are of Israel. You may well have been born in Israel, but Paul says, you reject Messiah, you're not an Israelite. And that's the problem that Judaism has even now, right now. They are not all Israel which are Israel, neither because they are the seed of Abraham. Did you hear me? Our topic today is what? The promised seed of Abraham. But Paul is letting you know, neither because they are the seed of Abraham are they all children. But in what? Isaac. We just read in Genesis chapter 28 and verse 3. But in Isaac thy seed be called. That is, they which are the children of flesh, these are not the children of Yah. But the children of promise are counted for the seed. Are you with me? So join me now in Yohanan, chapter 1 and verse 12 and 13. But as many as received him, received whom? Yeshua. To them he gave the right to become children of Yah. To those who believe in his name. To believe in his what? What's his name? Yeshua, not Jesus, not Lord. To believe in his name, who were born not of blood. You didn't hear me. Let me say that again. They were born not of blood, nor the will of flesh, nor of the will of man, but of Yah. Let me say that again. This is Yohanan. This is John, who leaned on his breast that night they were having the Last Supper. And he is writing to the assemblies, all 7 of them, the candlesticks. And he's letting you know that you are not a Jew simply because you were born of the blood. The biology of it doesn't count. Unless you have the biology of Yeshua, you can't be linked to Abraham. Let's read it again. But as many as received him, Yeshua, to them he gave the right to become children of Yah, to those who believe in his name, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of the man, but of Yahweh. And so, you know, one of the prevalent practice of this age is that people will go online and they will make applications to rabbis to trace their genealogy and to see whether or not they are Israelites or not. Paul says, stop those foolish tracing of fables and genealogies. Stop it. Unless you're born of the Spirit and you are in Yeshua, you're not Abraham's seed. You can't be. Paul wants us to know that. And so all that you hear people are saying, ignore it. But take note of what Yah is saying. So come with me to the book of Galatians, Galatians chapter 3. Galatians chapter 3, and we will read from verse 10. For as many as are of the works of the law are under the curse. For it is written, curse is everyone that continueth not in all things which are written in the book of the law to do them. But no man is justified by the law in the sight of Yahweh. It is evident, for the just shall live how? By faith. Let me explain that. We read earlier that Yah made a covenant, a land covenant with Abraham. And thereafter he told Abraham that the seed, singular, is in Yeshua, through which all nations are going to be blessed. That's the promised seed, Yeshua. Understand that. But he says your seed, now, plurally speaking, they're going to go into a land as strangers, and they will spend 400 and plus years, but I will bring them out in the fourth generation. And he did. He raised up one called Moshe, Moses, who is the mediator of that covenant. And so join me in Exodus chapter 19. Exodus chapter 19. And we'll take note of it. We will look at verse 5 and 6. Now, therefore, if you will obey me, this is Yahweh having removed them from Egypt. He brings them to Mount Sinai, and he's here on Mount Sinai speaking morality to the people and telling them thereafter how they should live. He's saying, if you obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for the earth is mine. Understand this. He's saying, if you do this, you will be a treasure to me. Verse 8, and you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and an holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. So the mixed multitude that came out of Egypt, Yah here on Mount Sinai is offering them the same covenant that he gave to their father Abraham. If you obey me, every one of you will be a priest, and so we would have a kingdom of priests. Going back to Genesis chapter 28 and verse 3, you will be an assembly, one assembly. And as a consequence of this one assembly, all nations of the earth will be blessed. We've got to understand that, which again ties in to Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 23, the general assembly. So every church, so-called, whether you Baptist, Pentecostal, Seventh-day Adventist, Catholic, you are a hive in the colony. And that's why Yeshua in Yohanan chapter 14, he said, let not your heart be troubled. Why? He said, ye believe in Yah, believe in me. I've gone to prepare a what? A place that where I am, you may be. Because in my Father's colony, there are many hives. Are you with me? In my Father's colony, there are many hives. And in each hive, you must make honey. And you must drink honey, eat honey, and drink milk. But it seemed to me this morning that we have more wasp than we have honeybee. Are you with me? Why do you say that? Because you know a honeybee, can only sting you once. But the wasp can sting and sting and sting and sting and just move away. And so we're having more wars. So when you see all those wars being fought, and some are claiming they're holy war, you know that's not a honeybee, you know that's a wasp. Because they're doing more stinging than they're doing collecting nectar to make peace. You can see that. And so when Israel of old did not obey Yah according to Exodus chapter 19, because they broken the covenant by way of the golden calf, he then established what? The Levitical order. Hear me? So they were no longer being offered the Melchizedek. That's the land covenant. They were given the Melchizedek order, and they were told, this is your schoolmaster. This is your schoolmaster. Why? Children who don't learn very well, they're slow, they're backward. The Bible calls them stiff-necked. He said they need a tutor because they won't pass this exam. So we need private tuition for them. And that's what Israel was given, a tutor, a schoolmaster. And this schoolmaster would lead them and teach them the curriculum until the time that the Messiah comes. Because when the Messiah comes, the Messiah is coming with a kingdom. And in Luke chapter 16 and verse 16, what did he say? He said, the laws and the prophets were preached up until John, but thereafter what happened? The kingdom. And come with me to Matthew chapter 4, and let me show you that Yeshua's first public statement, what he said. Matthew chapter 4. Matthew chapter 4, the word says that Yeshua says, and let's look at verse 17. From that time, from what time? Because he came. Yeshua began to preach and to say, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. You notice he did not come to establish a church. Are you with me? Because the church already existed from Genesis 28, verse 3. He came to establish a kingdom. The whole idea of the church, the whole idea of the ecclesia, the echo, was to collect people like a train and transport them to the kingdom. That was the whole idea, where they would drink milk and honey. But we have to ask ourselves, how did so many wasps find themselves among the honeybee? How? So we see a sting over there and a sting over there and a sting over there in the nations. And each claiming to be Abraham's blood. But if we do not do the blood work and do the paternity test, even as Paul did, we cannot establish who is Abraham's seed. We can't. Because the blood, we must remember, was contaminated in Genesis chapter 3. The word says when Adam sinned, sin became a genetic transmission, and all men sinned. In Romans 5:12, it says, one man brought sin into the world, meaning sin is a blood problem. Are you with me? So if sin is a blood problem, you can only correct the problem by way of a new transfusion. It's called the new birth. And so rather than running with the biological blood of Adam, or people we call Israelite, we run with that which we call Yeshua's blood. That's the transfusion we're talking about. That's how we resolve the blood problem. So we don't send applications to rabbis to ask them to look on the Jewish tree to see if we have a genealogy there. Paul says that's foolishness. We look at Yeshua, that blood that is not tainted. That's what you ought to know. Paul says that in Galatians 6 and verse 16, the Israel of Yah. The Israel of Yah is not the state of Israel. You need to understand that. And we're confused because people are looking at the state of Israel and are not looking at the facts. The Bible says that when the Israelite came out of Egypt, it was a mixed multitude. Are you with me? He says it was a mixed multitude of people. And he brought them to Mount Sinai, and he told them how they should live. And those who accepted how should live, whether you were Egyptian, whether you were merely sojourner or Israelite, it was the same law for everybody. It was the same law. And so an Israelite is not an extreme type of person. A Jew is not an extreme type of person in the general sense that we use it. So come with me to the book of Genesis again, because we really want to send this blood to the lab to make sure that when the results come back, it will not be confused with the scientists of this age. Genesis chapter 37. Come with me there. Genesis chapter 37. The word says, and Jacob dwelt in the land of the father, sojourning in the land of Canaan. These are the generation of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. People don't like when you tell about their sins, their evil reports. They plot against you as they plotted against Joseph. Oh, yes. And the word says that Jacob loved Joseph more than all of his children. And he made him a coat of many colors. And that only brought on jealousy from the others. Are you with me? He made him a coat of many colors. Perhaps you see where I'm going with this. That coat that Joseph received represent that group of people that came from Egypt, multicolored people. That's what Israel is. Are you with me? Israel is not one group of people. Yet it's a group of people who are tied to Messiah through Abraham by way of faith, by way of belief, not by biological blood. You send a few dollars or a few pounds to a rabbi somewhere, you can get a certificate and say you're a Jew. But the Bible says that's foolishness. You can't do that. Or at least you're not supposed to do that. And so when Jacob made this coat for Joseph, he was making it as a type for the Messiah who is to fulfill this promise. Because the Messiah would first come as the Messiah ben Yosef. And then when he comes back as Messiah ben David. So the one Messiah is playing two roles. He's playing Joseph and he's playing David. At least he's fulfilling that. Come with me, therefore, to the book of John, John 19, 1-3. John 19, 1-3. And he says, then Pilate, therefore, took Yeshua and scourged him. And the soldiers plaited a crown of thorns and put it on his head, and they put on him a purple robe and said, Hail, King of the Jews, and they smote him with their hand. So note here, they put on him what? A purple robe. Now join me now with Matthew 27, 27 and 28. Then the soldiers of the governor took Yeshua into the common hall and gathered unto him the whole band of soldiers, and they stripped him and put on him a scarlet robe. Let me ask you, is scarlet the same as purple? You would probably say no, wouldn't you? All right. So I'm only showing you how Yeshua is fulfilling the promise of Joseph, Messiah. Come with me to Mark chapter 9, verses 2-4. And after 6 days, Yeshua taketh with him Peter and James and John, and leadeth them up into the high mountain apart from themselves, and he was transfigured before them, and his raiment, his robe that is, became shining, exceedingly white as snow. Are you with me? Come with me now to Hebrews chapter 6. So also Yeshua glorified not himself to be high priest, but he that said unto him, Thou art a son today, have I begotten thee, as he said on also in another place, Thou art a priest forever in the order of what? Not Levi, Melchizedek. You are a priest in the order of Melchizedek. Hear me. So when Yeshua came, understand this, we were no longer under the Levi order of things. He changed that. Well, what do you mean he changed that? Because the word says when you have a new priest, what happened? Well, come with me to the book of Hebrews. The book of Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 9. Hebrews chapter 9. And let's start from verse 17. For a covenant is made firm over the death of the victim. Otherwise, it is of no strength at all why that which ratifies is alive. If someone made a will in your name and the person is still alive, you can't claim it. No. You have to wait until the person dies, and you go to probate court and you probate that will in your name, and you get your inheritance. The writer of Hebrew wants you to know that, because Yeshua is the mediator of that new covenant. The only mediator. I don't care what TV say and say there are other ways to get to the kingdom. There is only one way, Acts 4:12. No other name. So verse 16 says, for where a covenant is, there must also of necessity be the death, that which it ratifies. Verse 19, for when Moses had spoken every precept to all the people according to the law, he took the blood of calves and of goats and water and scarlet wool and hyssop and sprinkled both the book and of the people, saying, this is the blood of the covenant which Yahweh hath enjoined unto you. And so the writer here wants you to know that when there is a change in the high priest, there must be of necessity a change where? In the law. There must be. When there is, remember, I started out by saying that the land covenant is based on, the administration of it is based on the Melchizedek order. But when they failed by way of the golden calf experience, they were, because they had broken the covenant, they were given the Levitical order. Instead of everybody being a priest, you have one priest coming from Aaron's family. But that was to lead them to the Messiah. Are you with me? Because according to Genesis chapter 49 and verse 10, the scepter shall not depart from Judah until Shiloh comes. Judah is given the rulership scepter, but the birthright is for Joseph. You didn't hear me. Let me say it again. The scepter, Moses wrote in Bereshit chapter 49 and verse 10, belongs to Judah, Yahudi. But the birthright is given to whom? Joseph. Now, perhaps you didn't get that either. Let me say it again. The birthright is linked to the land because it's the inheritance. It's the promise that was made. So Joseph is given the birthright, which he passes on, or at least Jacob passes it on, to Joseph's sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. So when we read Genesis, Bereshit chapter 48, we see Jacob is blessing two North African boys, the sons of who? The mother was the high priestess of other gods, the daughter of other gods. It was a mixed multitude. Joseph mixed with this Egyptian woman to reflect the color of his coat, to reflect the colors that they were placed on Yeshua, Messiah ben Yosef. So when Jacob blessed Ephraim and Manasseh, he said, put my name on them. What's his name? His name is Israel. So the question I would like to ask you, did Judah get that blessing? No. Did the others get that blessing? No. No more than Esau received the blessing that Jacob received. It was a blessing for Israel. And only Ephraim and Manasseh got the blessing. Judah did not get it. So Israel are the descendants of Joseph. Joseph. So when you hear a man say, I'm an Israelite, anybody, it doesn't matter where you come from, what nation you come from, what country you come from, you receive Yeshua, you are linked to Abraham. You're linked to Abraham. So let's go back to Galatians. Galatians chapter 3, verse 17. And this I say, that the covenant that which was confirmed before Yahweh in his Messiah, which is the Levitical law, and let me just make that point, that we have to make a clinical distinction between the book of the covenant and the book of the law. The book of the covenant was put inside of the ark. The book of what? The law was put in the side, outside, as a witness, testifying against the people of that which they had broken, which was inside. So when I hear people say, the law is done away with, they don't understand that it's talking about Levitical laws. They think it's the 10 Commandments. No, the 10 Commandments are the moral precepts, the principles by which we live. It's inside the ark. The Levitical law were put in the side, outside. Two different things. Book of the covenant, which is the 10 Commandments, and the book of the law. We need to understand that. So we're back at Galatians 3:17. And this I say, that the covenant that which was confirmed before of Yahweh, which covenant? The one he made with Abraham in chapter 12 of Genesis, is in the Messiah. Did you get that? Again, let me read it, because we need to get this. And this I say, that the covenant that was confirmed before of Yahweh in his Messiah. You see the link? Everything is linked through Messiah to Abraham. The Levitical law, which came 430 years after. Did you hear me? The Levitical laws came 430 years after. This is not the 10 Commandments. Cannot disannul that it should make the promise of none effect. The Levitical law, get me now, which came 430 years after, cannot disannul, cannot expunge from the records the covenant that was made with Abraham in Genesis chapter 12. It cannot. Why? It tells you why. Because that covenant was made in the order of Melchizedek, which is a higher priesthood. It is higher than the Levitical priesthood. So the lesser priesthood, which is Aaronic priesthood, which came later on, cannot disannul that promise. So when the Messiah comes, he will elevate us back to the Melchizedek order. We've got to understand that. And so we're no longer under the Levitical order. We're under Melchizedek order, meaning we're all priests. Doesn't mean you don't have a leader, but we're all priests. Are you with me? We are all priests. So when Jacob blessed Ephraim and Manasseh, he's really saying that wherever you come from, you accept Yeshua, you are Abraham's seed. Let's stay in Galatians a little bit more. 18. For if the inheritance be by the ceremonial law, it is no more of promise. Did you get that? If your promise is based on the Levitical order, it is no longer a promise. The promise was made to Abraham. Abraham, I'm going to give you this land full of milk and honey. When you go there, I want you to drink milk and eat honey. I don't want you to be eating honey from the carcass of a dead lion. I don't want you to do that. But Yahweh gave it to Abraham by promise. Verse 19, wherefore then serveth the law? It was added because of transgression. Did you get that? He said the Levitical order, had you not transgressed the Melchizedek order, you would not have been given the Levitical order. Are you with me? Had you passed the first test, I would never have assigned to you a tutor, but you're a dunce. That's what the word is saying. It was added because of transgression till the seed, who is the seed? Messiah, should come, to whom the promise was made, and it was ordained by angel in the hands of a mediator. Now, a mediator is not a mediator of one, but Yahweh is one. Are you with me? It is the law then against the promises of Yahweh? By no means. For if they had been a law given which could have given life, verily righteous should have been by the law. Sometimes when people read this, they get confused with the book of the law and the book of the covenant. We ought not to do that. Verse 23, but before faith came, did you hear me? Before faith came, we were kept under the ceremonial laws, shut up in the faith which should afterwards be revealed. Don't miss that point. Before faith came, what is he talking about? Before faith came. The just must live by faith. The children of Israel on Mount Sinai said, everything Yah said we will do. They accept them by faith, but they did not exercise the faith. Are you with me? The Levitical law is not by faith. It's not by faith. But before faith came, we were kept under the law, that's the Levitical law, shut up unto faith, which should afterward be revealed. So when Messiah comes now, what does he do? He revealed the law again for we to accept by faith. We do them, not because somebody is chasing us and stalking us like a bloodhound. We do them because we know that they're in our best interest. All right? So we've got to understand that. Verse 24, wherefore the law was our schoolmaster to bring us unto the Messiah. Did you get that? The Levitical laws were intended to bring us to the Messiah, that we might be justified by what? By faith. But after that faith is come, we are no longer under the schoolmaster. I mean, it is so simple. It is almost difficult. Are you with me? For we are all children of Yahweh by what? Not by blood. Not by being born in Israel. Not by making application for your genealogy from some rabbi somewhere. Not by wearing a yarmulke. Not by your tzitzit. Not by the color of your robe. But by faith. By faith. And so now he tells you in verse 28, when we are all Hebrew children by faith, he says, there is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither bond nor free. There is neither male nor female, for we are all one in Yeshua, Messiah. He's saying, when you accept Yeshua, there is no superiority of one group over the next. There is no one group saying we're white and we're right, and the black must stay back, and the brown can stick around. He's saying there is no elevation of one and denigration of the other. We're all one in Yeshua. And because you're in Yeshua, verse 29 says, then are you Abraham's seed. But that's not the world does thing. The world holds up a particular group of people and say, do you know that these are the children of Abraham? Do you know that these are the Jews? And I say, how do you know? As you ought to ask them. Because the word of Yah doesn't define a Jew in the same way as the world does. Through the United Nations and through the Balfour Agreement, the British, they brought a group of people and brought them to Israel in 1948 and said, this is the state of Israel. And we have seen the state of Israel. And now we are looking at the fate of Israel. Are you with me? The word says, when you accept Yeshua, there is no one group above the next. There is no elevation of one group and a putting down of the other group. We're all one in Yeshua. And if you be in Yeshua, then, only then, are you with me? Only then are you Abraham's seed. Yeshua had this conversation with them in John chapter 8. Did he not? Because they were making snide remarks at him and insinuating that he doesn't know who his father was. They were doing that because Miriam, his wife, was found to be with child, and rumors were going around that the child is not Joseph's child. And he was thinking of quelling this by putting away privily. And so they were using that situation to say, well, we know who our father is. And what did he say? He said, you are like your father, the devil. You're a generation of vipers. Are you with me? Well, let's read. Come with me to Revelation chapter 2 and verse 9, because we see he gives this testimony to both Smyrna and he gives it to Philadelphia. And the reason for that is that these are the two lampstands. These are the two assemblies that did not have any condemnation. So let's go to Revelation chapter 2 and verse 9. For I know thy works. He's speaking to Smyrna here. And tribulation and poverty, that thou art rich, and I know how thou art slandered by them which say they are Jews. See? I know that. They say they are Jews, but they are not. They are the synagogue of Satan. This is not me writing this. This is Yeshua telling John that they are the synagogue of Satan. And if you come to chapter 3 and verse 9, he said, behold, he's talking to Philadelphia now, the church of brotherly love. Behold, I have come, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. Did you hear that? He says, I'm going to let them come and worship before you. Now, the synagogue of Satan, where did they come from? Last week, you recall, we looked at the book of 2 Kings. You remember it? And perhaps to refresh our mind, let's go there again, 2 Kings, and we're going to start in verse 17. 2 Kings chapter 17, I should say, in verse 24. The king of Assyria. Who are we talking about? We're talking about Sargon II. All right? And so we're dealing with the Neo-Assyrian Empire. A man who reigned from about 721 to 705 BC. I want you to get this historically as the veracity of scriptures. the king of Assyria brought people from Babylon. He brought people from where? Babylon. Kutla, Ava, Amad, and Sepharvaim. These people were brought from Babylon to replace the Israelite, the 10 tribes that were taken out in 722 BC. Understand where I'm going. The 10 tribes were removed, scattered, not lost, scattered. You can go down to Aksum in Ethiopia and you probably find some of them. But in order to replace them, Sargon II brought in some people, some strangers, some heretics, pagan worshippers from Babylon. And where did he place them? He placed them in Samaria, which is the capital of the northern kingdom. And they took over Samaria and lived in its town. When they first lived there, they did not worship Yah. Of course not. They're pagans. They're coming from Babylon. They're used to Shinar. They pay homage to Nimrod. They build towers. Remember, that's where Abraham lived. And he crossed over. He crossed over the Euphrates. Hear me. And he accepted the religion of Noah. Or I should say the faith of Noah. Joshua made comment on this in chapter 24 and verse 2. He crossed over. There's nothing to cross now because the Euphrates is drying up. You can walk in the riverbed. You didn't hear me. I said you can walk in the riverbed and capture Babylon, the same as Cyrus did, because there is no water there anymore. You read in Daniel chapter 5, you see this. So the people, the strangers, the pagans, were not worshiping Yah. So the word says, the king realized this. And what did he do? He asked them to go and get a priest from the captives to come and teach the people about Yah. What Sargon didn't know or seemed to realize, that the priests that came back from the captive were the same priests that caused the captivity in the first place. These are people who were worshiping other gods. That's why they were taking it. So they brought him back and he continued to teach them. And so we have this synagogue of Satan still in there. So when the woman at the well in chapter 4 of Yohanan came and was telling Yeshua, well, we do this. She got her religion from Babylon. She got her religion from Babylon. Are you with me? So it's imperative that we look at the word. And if you come with me to the book we call Acts of the Apostles. And we want to look at chapter 7. Acts chapter 7. Acts chapter 7. You know this story very well because it has to do with Deacon Stephen. Deacon Stephen was preaching to the people and telling them the historicity of Israel. I won't go through all of it, but I will start from verse 37, chapter 7. And he says, "This is that Moses, which said unto the children of Israel, a prophet shall Yah your Elohim raise up unto you, your brethren, like unto me, him ye shall hear." He's quoting what? He's quoting Deuteronomy 18:15. This is he that was in the church. He wanted what? The church in the wilderness, the assembly in the wilderness. There was an assembly in the wilderness. Why? Because, as I indicated before, the assembly started in Genesis 28 and verse 3. Not in Acts chapter 2, as religionists will tell you. So he's making the point about Moses, to whom our fathers would not obey. Oh, here I was thinking that stiff-necked people are only contemporary. No, they existed even then. It doesn't matter how much you try to encourage them to be obedient to Yah, they just do their own thing and think it's all right and still believe they can reserve a place in the kingdom when they send the stench to Yah's nostril and don't even know it. Why? Because they're naked and they're wearing fig leaves. Are you with me? Verse 40, saying unto Aaron, make us gods and go before us. He's making reference now to Mount Sinai and the golden calf. He's giving us a clean sweep of where Israel went wrong. But I want you to dilate upon verse 43. Yea, he took up the tabernacle of Molech. Did you hear that? Remember, these are the people who in the land of Israel were supposed to be drinking milk and eating honey. We're talking about a land that is fertile, and he's talking about prosperity. They were supposed to be prosperous. But yea, you took up the tabernacle of Molech and the star of your god, Remphan, figures which ye made to worship them, and I will carry you away beyond Babylon. Question: what is the star of Remphan? What is the star of Remphan? Question to you. Well, scholars and others and theologians will tell you that the star of Remphan is overlaid of two equilateral triangles. The mathematical property of an equilateral triangle, as we discussed some weeks ago, is that the sum of its three angles is equal to 180 degrees. All angles are 60. Are you with me? It's a triangle. But when you put two of those triangles, one on top of the other, you get 380. Or, yes, 360, I should say. Not 380, 360. 180 plus 180 equals 360. But when you omit the zero, you have 36. (666). And some say the mark of the Antichrist. So these same scholars will tell you that the star of Remphan that Stephen here, Deacon Stephen, is talking about, is that star, that double triangle, equilateral, one on top of another, that you see today on the flag of the state of Israel. Some dispute it. Some say that's the star of Remphan that they call the Star of David. And so Stephen here is telling you, or telling them, you've heard. You're worshiping Molech and you have the Star of Remphan. And so it concerns me to the extent where we must now go to the book of Ezekiel. Ezekiel chapter 40. I won't go through all of it because the last 8 chapters of Ezekiel talks about a temple, which many scholars and theologians say it is the Millennium Temple. The Millennial Temple. In chapter 40, it reads, in the 5 and 28th year of the captivity, in the beginning of the year, in the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year after that, the city was smitten. In the selfsame day, the hand of Yah was upon me and brought me thither in the visions of Yah, brought me into the land of Yisrael, and set me up on a very high mountain, by which was as the frame of a city on the south. And he brought me thither, and behold, there was a man whose appearance was like the appearance of brass. Same man again. We're reading in Ezekiel, but John saw the same man. It's interesting that Michelangelo read this and saw this, but he drew a different man, a European man. This is an African kind of a man, color-wise. But anyhow, we won't tarry there, just to let you know what the prophet saw, like the appearance of brass, with a line of flax in his hand and the measuring reed, and he stood in the gate. And the man said unto me, Son of man, behold, with thine eyes and hear with thine ears, and set thine heart upon all this, I shall shew thee, for to this intent that I may shew. And he goes through all the chapters there, and he tells you, and the people have concluded, the scholars, that this is the Millennium Temple that is to be rebuilt. What concerns me, and perhaps it concerns you, that when the Millennium Temple is built, they will revert back to the Levitical order. Why? They will start with the sacrifice of animals. And we read, well, did we not read? Did we read? Let's go to Hebrews, because I want you to see this for yourself. Let's go to Hebrews 9, and let's look at, what does it say? It says that, verse 12, neither by the blood of goats and calves, but by his own blood he entered in once into the holy place, having obtained eternal redemption for us. So they're going to start the sacrificial system again. Hebrews 10 and verse 4 also says, for it is not possible. It is what? Not possible. Meaning it is impossible. that the blood of bulls and of goats should take away sins. In the new temple that they're building, the so-called third temple, they're going to start the sacrificial system. They already have the implements ready. The priest already practicing. They have the trumpets. They have the menorah. They have quite a number of these things. They're going to build this and do that kind of a worship. And that's why I must call your attention to the book of Thessalonians. Let's go there. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. And what does Paul say in verse 3? He says, concerning the coming of the Messiah, what's going to happen? He says, whatever they say, that day will not come. It will not what? It will not come until there is a falling away first. And the man of sin will reveal himself, who opposes all things. And what else does Paul say? Well, let's start and get this slowly so we don't miss it. Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of the Master, Messiah, Yeshua, and by the gathering together unto him, that we be not soon shaken in mind or be troubled, neither by spirit nor by word, nor by letter as from us, as that day of Yeshua is at end. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there be a falling away, an apostasy comes first. And the man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposed and exalted himself. Did you see that? Exalt. They have to exalt one group of people and then denigrate the other group. So they have this hierarchy. We read earlier in Galatians 3 that when we accept Yeshua, there's no elevation, there's no denigration, there is no superiority. We're all one in Yeshua. We read that. So this man, though, he comes and verse 4, he opposed and exalted. There it is, himself above all that is called Yah, or that is worshipped. So he what? He sitteth in the temple of Yah, showing himself to be Yah. So it seems therefore, and you can conclude, you can conjecture, you can make that reference by way of inference or otherwise, that this man is going to come and the temple that they build, he's going to sit in there, proclaiming himself to be God under the sacrificial system of animals, ignoring what the Messiah has done. He said he gave himself once and for all mankind. So if you're going to start the sacrificial system again, then you're in trouble. You are in trouble. You will be eating honey and drinking milk out of a dead carcass, a dead lion. Hear me? Who then is a dead lion? Those who call themselves Judah. Remember, Judah, we're told in Genesis 49, is a lion whelp. So it seemed that if you go back to that, you have made Judah a dead lion. A dead lion. 1 John chapter 2, verse 18. Little children, it is the last time. And as ye have heard that the Antichrist shall come. He shall what? He shall come. Even now are there many Antichrists, whereby we know that it is the last time. We know. How do we know they're Antichrists? He tells you. They went out from us, but they were not from us. For if they had been with us, they would what? No doubt have continued with us. But they went out that they might be made manifest that they were not all of us. But he have an unction from the Ruach, the Holy One, and ye know all things. I have not written unto you because you know not the truth, but because you know it, and that no lie is the truth. Who is a liar? The question is asked. But he that denieth that Yeshua is the Christ. Who is a liar? He who denies that Yeshua is the Messiah. Judaism denies this. Judaism says he hasn't come. And others have joined that he hasn't come. So John wants you to know anybody who says the Messiah has not yet come is a liar. So the question must be asked, how can you be a liar and be the children of Yah when the word says no liar will be found in the kingdom? None. None who steal will be in the kingdom. No effeminate will be in the kingdom. None who break the Sabbath will be in the kingdom. And you want to tell me that when you look on a particular people because they were born in a particular place, you say that they are the Israelite? Okay, let's reason then. If you are an Israelite because you were born there, how then were the children of Israel born in Egypt, but they're not Egyptians? Answer me that. It has nothing to do with your physical birth. Are you with me? Nothing at all, but all to do with your spiritual birth. That's what we need to know. So let us not be confused by every wind of doctrine that men put before us. No. And so in Psalm 87, we're told by Korah, and of Zion. And of who? Zion, meaning you were born in Zion. Not physical Zion, but spiritual Zion. Well, let's start from verse 4. I will make mention of Rahab. Where was Rahab born? In Jericho. And Babylon. He's going to make mention of Rahab and of Babylon to them that know me. Behold, Philistia and Tyre with Ethiopia. This man was born there, and of Zion it shall be said, this and that man was born in her, and the highest himself shall be established earth. Yah shall count when he writeth up the people, that this man was born there, as well the singers as the players of instrument shall be there. All my springs are in thee. Wherever you were born, you accept Yeshua. He said that man was born over there, and that man was born in Babylon, but they accept Yeshua. They're born in Zion. Let's close in Revelation chapter 5. Revelation chapter 5. So, because they have misrepresented the message to the people, and nobody knows who owns the land. Nobody knows. The Palestinian says it's theirs because they are descendants of Ishmael. Another group says, well, we are descendants of who? Israelites. The Bible says, the land belongs to you if you're descendants of Ephraim, the sons of Joseph, whose mother was an Egyptian. That's what the word said. They were given the what? Joseph was given the birthright, and the birthright is connected to the land. So he who gives you the land, you go to probate court and you probate the will in your name, the land is yours. So there is a dispute, contemporary and otherwise. So come with me to Revelation chapter 5. And I saw in his right hand, who sees this? John said, Yohanan says, I see it in his right hand, that sat on the throne, a book written within, and on the backside, sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, who is worthy to open the book and to loose the seals thereof? Who? Let's find a man who can open this book and see what's inside. And no man in heaven, no man where? In heaven. Not in the earth, neither under the earth. That means none alive and none dead was able to open the book, neither to look thereon. And I wept. Of course I wept, because why is John weeping? John knows that in order to claim our inheritance given to us, we have to go to probate court and to prove that we have the land title, the deeds of the land. But nobody seems to have the title. Where's Moses? Moses can't open it. Where's Noah? A preacher of righteousness. He can't open it. David, surely. No, David can't open it. Wow, we're in trouble. And John begins to weep. And I mean uncontrollable. He's weeping. All right, let Adam come forth, because Adam was the one who was given this and given the jurisdiction. Adam can't come either. John says, I see no man. And I wept, because no man was found worthy to open and read the book, neither to look thereon. And one of the elders said unto me, weep not. Wow. Why are you telling me not to weep? Behold, the lion, the what? The lion of the tribe of Judah. He's not dead, he's alive. The lion of the tribe of Judah. The root of David hath prevailed to open the book and to loose the 7 seals thereof. And I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne and of the beast, and in the midst of the elders stood the Lamb, as it were been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of Yah, sent forth into the earth. Did you hear that? He sees a lion and a lamb. You understand why the lion's going to lie down with the lamb, don't you? And notice how he qualifies the lamb. He said, like it had been slain. That's the price that he paid. Are you with me? To ransom you and I, so that he could get back our inheritance. Because remember, Hebrews tells us we are joined heirs with him. So don't tell me you are an Israelite who reject the one who made the will in our name. Don't tell me you can reject him and then go to court and probate the will in your name and say the land is yours. The land is not yours. The land is for the people who accept Yeshua and are linked to Abraham. That's Abraham's seed. You can take that blood test home and check the paternity and see that Yeshua, Galatians 3:29, if you are in Yeshua, then, not before, then are you Abraham's seed. In Yeshua's name I pray. Amen.
Why should I feel discouraged? Why should the shadows come? Why should my heart be lonely? and long for heaven and home. When Yeshua is my portion, my constant friend is He. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. For His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. Let not your heart be troubled. His tender word I hear, and resting on His goodness, I lose my doubts and fears. Though by the path He leadeth, but one step I may see. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. For His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. For His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. And I know He watches me.